and thank you for all that you do, okay? We appreciate you. I think we are ready to get started. So I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting of the city of Bowie for Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. It is now 8:06 p.m. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For the record, Madam City Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have 4 council members present this evening. Councilmember Steph, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Harrison, and Mayor Adams.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, I would ask my esteemed colleagues, are there any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments? Hearing none, we will move on to citizen participation. Madam City Clerk, do we have any sign-ups for citizen participation? Thank you. We will begin with Patrice Murray. And the topic is foreclosure. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Mayor Adams and City Council and staff. I am Patrice Murray, a resident of Collington Station in Bowie, and concerned citizen. I come before you today concerning the issue of foreclosures and squatters living within the city of Bowie, and encourage you to adopt Resolution 2722, which demonstrates the city's commitment to maintaining properties in a non-nuisance condition. I also encourage you to do more. We know that some of our neighbors are, for various reasons, experiencing foreclosure on their homes. This unfortunate situation has created a new and dangerous problem for the neighbors left behind. While we have concern for those who must pick up and move, once their homes have been vacated, the very entities that remove them have no current obligation to ensure that our neighborhoods remain safe and that they remain in pristine condition. When a home is vacated, the lending authority in most cases has forced the mortgagee to vacate. Unfortunately, they do not take the same care to ensure the property is safe from intruders and kept up to the standards of the community. This resolution, while a start, falls short of holding the property owner accountable for its lack of action. In fact, Maryland Code allows a jurisdiction to provide information for a specific property to a person who owns property on the same block or homeowners association or condominium in which the property is located. Additionally, Section 7-105.14 6E4 states that a local jurisdiction may enact a local law that imposes a civil penalty for failure to register a foreclosed property in an amount not exceeding $1,000. Finally, I express my concern again that the city of Bowie use the measures available to them by codifying what you have already delineated in Resolution 2722, and including penalties to reduce the likelihood of increased abandoned foreclosed properties within our city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Karen Williamson. Thank you. The topic is also foreclosure.
Greetings, Mayor.
Good evening.
How are you? And greetings, City Council. And to the city staff, thank you. So, I went back over my notes today. So this whole thing started March the 19th. I think we've come a far way from that point. And the realization of an adoption of where we are right now, while it doesn't do everything, is a start. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work this cause with you. In the research that we've had over the past 3 months, we've learned things like the simple thing like a no trespass sign put on a property makes it criminal to go into the property. And that's something that's right in our Maryland statutes. So there's so much for, I think, the city of Bowie to learn about how to utilize these statutes that we have and put them in place with process that helps the city residents to know what to do if they suspect that there is a squatter in a foreclosed home. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey. Okay. You'll pass? Well, thank you for being here this evening anyway. All right. I don't see any more on the list, so we will now go to presentations. And this evening, we have the Excellence in Education Awards. What I'd like to do is ask our council members to go down to the floor, and we will go through the process as you call out all the names and all, and then we will wait there, and then after that, we'll all take a group picture. But we'll come down and join you there.
We take some, however,
Just
what do you want me to take?
You
You gonna do the checks?
Yeah, I can do it this time.
Whatever.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Naji Kirby, and I am the chair of the City of Bowie Education Committee. And on behalf of the committee, I want to welcome our honorees for the Excellence in Education awardees. Your extraordinary work during extraordinary times definitely does not go unnoticed, and your dedication and work really benefits our students and families. So we are so appreciative of all that you do. So I will call out the names, and if you all can come up, and then we'll pass you your certificates. So first, Sarah Bailey. Janine Barber Hussey. Angela Cherry. Tynetta Dempsey. Calvin Fitzpatrick. Linnea Folk. Linnea Gomez. Alicia Johnson. Adrian Leonard. Hold on. Okay. Lauren Lister. Celeste McGill. Jill Piazza. And Maureen Quinones. So one last round of applause. Thank you to all of our honorees. Let me take a picture with them. Yep. Okay, you can sit down.
We're going to need to do a hype thing to bring everyone in. Adrian's going to go. I'm sorry, I'm taking way too much tonight. I apologize.
How are we looking, everybody? Look over here.
You want to stand by?
There we go.
Is that better?
Hey, before you go, Rick, I want to say on behalf of the entire city council and the city of Bowie, thank you so very much for all you do. Our communities are much better because of you, and we just want to say thank you and continue with your hard work and your efforts because it means so much to so many. Again, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. All right, everybody, we can smile a little bit. It's a good evening. It's a good evening. Excuse me, gentlemen, as we begin, I think what I'd like to make sure we announce at this time, for all the teachers, you don't have to sit through anymore if you don't wish to. You're welcome to go ahead and watch us at home on the screen. Thank you so very much. That was good. All right. And let's give everybody a moment and then we'll continue.
Okay. She knows who's been there. Okay, that's what she said.
At this moment, we will now have the Caribbean American Heritage Month presentation by the Diversity Committee. And please, you can move the mic right into the middle and speak right into it. Yes, please. I'm sorry, I didn't move it back over. You can put it as where you're comfortable. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, City Council and city staff and other citizens. This month is June, and it is Caribbean American Heritage Month, but it is also Pride Month. I'll begin with our celebration of Caribbean Heritage Month. The month of June is a time when we celebrate the Caribbean people, their descendants, their impact in shaping American history, and the landscape of American culture, while recognizing and celebrating their contributions. Thus, the history of Caribbean American people plays a vital role in our society today. The first bill to introduce Caribbean heritage recognition was introduced by Congresswoman Barbara Lee. In 2006, a similar resolution passed the U.S. Senate. This yielded a continuous bipartisan and bicameral effort. Shortly thereafter, President Bush issued a proclamation which is renewed annually by White House officials. Dr. Claire Nelson, the founder and president of the Institute of Caribbean Studies, she launched the successful campaign to declare June as National Caribbean American Heritage Month in the United States. Dr. Nelson, along with several of her colleagues, also advocated for members of Congress regarding the importance of recognizing individuals of the Caribbean Heritage Month and of the Caribbean community. It is joyful to say that her voice did not go unheard. As we celebrate Caribbean Heritage Month, it is important to recognize the plethora of contributions they have made to better the American society. Caribbean Americans have represented this country as political officials, educators, military servicemen and servicewomen, community leaders, scientists, business leaders, students, law enforcement, and a host of other great contributions. Furthermore, June 2022 will mark the 14th annual celebrations of the Caribbean Heritage Month. Pride. LGBTQIA+, Pride, also known as Gay Pride, is the promotion of the self-affirmation, dignity, equality, and increased visibility of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, in transition, asexual, and other sexualities community. As a result of the movement of collective global voices, the LGBTQIA+ organizations and advocates began transforming the lives of those who have been discriminated against by actively seeking changes to legislation and supporting advocacy via the arts and media. We celebrate Pride Month in June to coincide with the catalyst of the gay liberation movement, that was the Stonewall Uprising. On June 28, 1969, police raided a popular gay bar in NYC's West Village, the Stonewall Inn. This was commonplace for the time, but on this night, patrons of the bar fought back, starting the Stonewall riots, which lasted several days. The Stonewall Inn was declared a historic landmark by the City of New York in 2015, and later named a national monument by President Barack Obama in 2016. This June is the 52nd anniversary of the first Pride Parade, which happened in 1970, 1 year after the uprising. As Pride Month is commemorated to remember Stonewall, it is also globally recognized as a civil rights movement that has evolved to include other sexual and gender identities, hence the evolution of LGBT to LGBTQIA+. Dangerous anti-LGBTQIA+ legislation has been introduced and passed in states across the United States, targeting transgender children and their parents and interfering with their access to health care, said President Biden. This year's Pride theme is "The Fight Continues." Remember, Pride started as a protest, and let's remember the contributions of our Caribbean community. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we would go to city boards and committees. I don't believe we have any reports this evening.
No, Mayor.
Okay, next on the agenda is council announcements. I'd like to make one announcement. I spoke a little earlier about Juneteenth, the festival that we had, along with Father's Day celebration. I'd like to thank again those who participated from the city staff and from the city as a whole for supporting that. And again, for the third time maybe this evening, I say again to all the fathers and all the father figures. Again, what helps keep our community strong and our nation and our world is that we have the proper role models. And I want to thank all of you as fathers for your roles you play in the children's lives. So thank you again on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I'd like to, one last thing, I'd like to take a moment to say, today was the ribbon cutting. One of the issues we have that is huge across this country, not only here, but in the county, across the country, is mental health and understanding and dealing with that. I'm very proud that today we cut the ribbon on the new mental health clinic that is sponsored and given money and supported by our community as a whole. You know, and also in being open, I'm a member of Luminous Health board. But the mere fact that that was where it was isn't as important by far. It's just that our county has invested in that, and we as a community be much better off from that. And I look at our law enforcement, and I'm sure not only with the issues we deal with in our families and with our friends and individually, we know that when it comes to what's going on with our police department and what they have to deal with and others, that this will be a great assistance and a great help. So again, I want to congratulate the county, our community, for being able to address this issue and really in bringing more resources towards mental health and making sure that all of us understand that that is something we all need to address and should not be hesitant in seeking help or even recommending help to others. So thank you so much for what was done today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any other council members want any other announcements?
I do have.
Councilman Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for those kind words. I totally agree with you. I wanted to just make an announcement of appreciation and recognition for city staff and their response and emergency management and response that Lee Cromwell, Sally Hines, Nick, Una Cooper, and several others, including our gymnasium staff, provided to the residents of Larkin Chase during the explosion that occurred last week. I was on site for a number of hours at the gymnasium. I myself have two friends who have parents there, and it was important to me because those friends are friends of mine, and not just because of that, but we have a number of residents that were frightened and shaken by that large explosion. It was about maybe 4 a.m. in the morning. I felt it at my home, and I thought it was thunder. My house shook. My dog woke up barking for the remainder of the night, and then later to find out it was an explosion of such. I know it's a lot of investigations going on, but as soon as you do get any information further as to what caused the explosion, I'd like to know about that. But again, I want to recognize our city staff and the immediate response of our emergency management team. I have a question, City Manager Lott. Could you tell me, did that emergency management team start prior to your being a part of city staff as the city manager or after? I don't remember.
Well, when I got here, there was one person.
Okay.
A one-man operation. And so I sought to expand that by hiring Stephanie Robinson, who is just got a master's degree in emergency management, by the way. And then she's a coach teacher. And we got them vehicles and all the equipment to support that. Mr. Cornwell is a former battalion chief and experienced his last several years with emergency management. So I hired him in 17, Stephanie a couple of years later, and we have two of the best hires I made.
Wow. You know, I want to say myself, because I was trying to determine the size and the growth of the department, but since you've been on staff, city manager, and since seeing the emergency management staff grow, department grow, they've been a hard-working group of people and at use in several situations, and seeing us through the pandemic, seeing us through storms, seeing us through this here with that just recently happened at Larkin Chase. And just, I went over, and I don't know if you all had any chance to talk to any of the residents that were there, but again, as I said, I was there for several hours, and many of the residents' blood pressures, well, not many, all, I was told, were elevated to really dangerous levels because of this explosion. And these are seniors and a part of our community, and it was just sad to see their condition. But I want to just applaud our city staff under Lee Cromwell and Bowie staff, and just how they just immediately went out there. They provided meals, they provided transportation. I'll share this with you. My friends' parents have been transported and relocated to Annapolis to Heritage House. I took a ride with several of the residents just to report back to many family members that were unable to get there on site. And I wasn't able to go into the facilities because of COVID and things of that nature, but it was just an incredible, it looked like a war zone. It really did. And I just want to just genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for what you've done to assist our residents. And thank you, City Manager. I like us as council some days in the future to bring that staff in front of us and to maybe provide some sort of recognition for all the work that they've done for that. It was amazing. Thank you.
Hey,
thank you, Mr.
We're working on that,
And
sir.
if I could add to that, I would like to say again too, not only with what our staff did, but how they coordinated with all of the other emergency response
Absolutely.
in the area and all. And I have to really applaud that as well.
Absolutely.
The communities coming together. But the other thing I have to say, and I guess Lee would say how early we started, I want to thank staff, because by 4:09 a.m., I was being notified of what was going on. 4:09 a.m. in the morning, I was being called by staff, but also by other resources in the area, by the county and other people and all. So I say again to staff, and I applaud exactly as you said, we have one of the finest emergency management staff, but one of the finest teams overall with all that you've done. And I'm talking about our police, our fire, everyone did a magnificent job. And it goes to saying, and
you're right.
co-signing what you're saying about how fast they responded.
So very good.
And again, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that we appreciated the team effort,
Yes.
because we need to make sure that we understand and know that you were at the forefront and you made sure to coordinate with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other?
You said it all.
Okay.
It all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. At this time, let's go to our city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents out in television land there. I'd like to first, once again, congratulate the City Council on passing the budget for FY 2023. That was a long and arduous process, but we have our flight plan. You given us our policy, and we're going to, beginning July 1, we're going to take off and run with that. I'd also like to congratulate all the city employees of Bowie for delivering seamless, reliable service to the residents for another fiscal year. And from the rangers to the police to the solid waste to the street people to our folks at the desks, they're conscientious employees, and it makes my life a whole lot easier. And with regard to the emergency situation with the Larkin Chase disaster, I am working on a list of who contributed, and we had many. Our rangers and custodians became caregivers immediately, and we're caring for people, from 83 people who were in our gym, and they did a bang-up job. And of course, we were in contact with Red Cross. Larkin Chase did a really good job of recovery, I must say, and the county and all persons were working together. I'll be hopefully in August coming back with some sort of resolution with a list of names, so you all know who the contributors were. Yes. And made us all look like we really know what we're doing, and they really did. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, we will now move to the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the consent agenda as provided. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move on to the old business and the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. This will be open to a public hearing for the public to provide their comments before council's final discussion and adoption of the draft plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, John Henry King, the Economic Development Director. At your May 2nd meeting, you suggested that we needed additional public hearing time on the draft Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. That additional public comment time was provided. 3 comments were received from the public. 2 were provided in the initial packet, and 1 was provided subsequently. Each of those comments has been considered. 1 had some immediate corrections we needed to take to make the PDF more readable to the public, which we have done. The other items are food for thought as we proceed with implementation. That's all we have for you, sir.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions before we open up the public hearing?
No, I just want to give one comment. As you guys know, this is a very extremely important project for me and for the city. I think most of us hear about our economic development as we kind of go throughout our city. So I really am appreciative to staff for the added time that we were able to add for residents. The only thing I want to say and kind of flag for my colleagues is that as we move towards an implementation phase in this period, one of the things that we have to remember is that economic development is an ongoing thing, right? And as we look to the next budget, we have to be really strategic and cautious and cognizant about the things that we're going to invest in as a city to ensure that people know that Bowie is open for business, that our residents can have better retail and better food options and all the things that we hear throughout our time throughout city. So that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to thank staff for the extra time and all those 3 comments. I think those 3 comments were taken seriously, and it was important for residents to get feedback. So that's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
And we will not start implementation until after we take a vote. Having said that, at this time, if there are no other questions from council, I'd like to open the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, do we have any comments or anyone speaking?
Mayor, no one has signed up this evening, but like Mr. King reported, there were 2 comments received, which were in the packet, and then 1 was received afterwards, so those will be provided and attached for the record.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no comment, we will now declare the public hearing closed. And at this time, I would like to hear if there are any other comments from our Councilman Esteve.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just now, were you referring to comments that were received in the survey that was conducted? Or was there something separate that came out of the survey?
I believe the comments were just open, they were posted on the website for residents to provide any input into the plan that was posted onto the website, which would have been part of the public hearing. I
Gotcha.
don't believe they were part of the survey.
Understood.
But Mr. King could clarify that if I'm incorrect.
Perfect. Mr. John Henry King.
No, there were 3 comments that came in after the May meeting. All 3 were submitted electronically via email. As I said, 2 of those came in enough time to be included as an attachment to this evening's item. The 3rd one came in after the packet was published and was provided separately to you.
Okay.
Maybe I'm missing something. Were the survey results included in the report we got? Because I don't remember seeing those.
Yes, the survey results were incorporated within the consultant's strategy report to us.
Okay, I don't remember seeing those. So
If you were looking for individual comments, those were not provided to ensure the anonymity of the respondents. So they were given to the consultant to consolidate, to group, and to include within the material they provided to us based on those comments.
Understood.
Is that it, council member?
No. But I'm going to let it go for now. Thank you.
Any other comments from any other council members at this time or questions?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan.
I'd like to second that as the council liaison to the EDC.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move on to the second item in old business, being the mortgage foreclosure legislation. And this is eligible for action. Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, the city attorney is ready, prepared to discuss it or explain it or answer questions if you all have it.
Okay. And Mr. Minor, are you going to present? Who's presenting? Oh,
So
please go right ahead.
no, so the resolution before you this evening is regarding the nuisance conditions on properties in the city to which a mortgage foreclosure process has commenced. It recognizes the Maryland Foreclosed Property Registry Act is codified in the Real Property Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland in Section 7-105.14. And it establishes a policy of the city in favor of closely observing these properties as to which lien holders are in the process of foreclosing a mortgage in order to prevent the development of the nuisance situations that have been identified. In furtherance of the policy, the city staff can check on the foreclosure registry. They can as frequently as they desire and will derive from that list information regarding the properties located within the city. If you were to look at Section 7-105.14, which is the internet-based foreclosure property registry, it identifies those activities that local jurisdictions are authorized to do. And you will notice that it says within a certain period of time, within 30 days actually, of a deed transferring title, the foreclosure purchaser is required to file with the registry. And then once that registry occurs, then the Commissioner of Financial Regulation is required to promptly notify the county and the municipal corporation of these properties. So we have to work within the parameters of the foreclosure property registry law. The resolution further indicates that city code compliance staff will monitor the properties on the city list on a biweekly basis and determine whether violations of the city ordinances regarding property maintenance exist and take appropriate action. I would also like to point out that, as was mentioned earlier this evening, Section E4 of the law provides that a local jurisdiction may enact a law that imposes a civil penalty for failure to register under the state law section in an amount not to exceed $1,000. So that would be a next step if the city was interested in doing that. And I will also mention that there's an abatement of nuisance on registered properties provision that authorizes the city to take certain action. And all of that is encompassed in this resolution by its reference to those things that we are allowed to do under the registry provisions. It goes on to state that the city will report the violations to the registry. The city will initiate public awareness campaign to advise and inform the public of the registry and encourage people to advise us of any violations. And that about sums up the nature of the resolution. Does anybody have any questions?
Council, any questions for at this time? Council, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Madam City Attorney, thank you for this. I think one of our speakers said earlier in public comments, we have been discussing this issue since March. And oftentimes in legislative bodies, we allow the perfect to be the enemy of good, right? This is, in my opinion, a phenomenal first step for a municipality, especially in Prince George's County, to take, given all the conditions that we have in the state. And truly will protect our residents in a way and notify them. And I think we have next steps that we can also take in place, but I think as a first step, this is a phenomenal place that we are in. I want to publicly thank the residents, especially those in Woodmore Highlands, who have really taken the initiative here in getting it to this place. We know this is not an issue that just happens within your community, but what this legislation will do and what this resolution will do is allow further residents to be protected throughout our community. So I really want to thank you guys publicly, and I think that we're going to have a good vote today on this. But again, Madam City Attorney, thank you for all the work that you and Alyssa have done on getting this done, as well as the City Manager for all the conversations that we've had behind the scenes and trying to get us to this place. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes,
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just kind of piggyback on Mayor Pro Tem's comments and publicly thank Jeffrey Cooper for being an advocate for this. We've had several discussions about it, and I know he's talked to pretty much everybody on the council, but he's just been a true champion for this effort, and I just want to publicly say thank you to you, Jeffrey, for your work and getting this moving forward. Thank you.
Any other comments from? I would just like to make one comment, and that is thank you to my neighbors for making this happen. I have been mute on this issue because, as many can tell you, one of those foreclosed homes where there was these challenges was just 3 doors down from where I live. And so I appreciate Woodmore Highlands Homeowners Association and everyone for their action and what they did in this. And I think it's also a good example of what can happen when the community really gets behind something and when they can bring it to our attention and are steadfast in making sure that we as a council and as a city truly represent you and take action. So thank you so very much. Having said that, any other comments at this point?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution sorry, R-27-22.
Second.
Okay, I will entertain a motion at this time. Having heard the motion from Mayor Pro Tem and the proper second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know I've been needling you a little bit today, having a little fun, but I do want us all to enjoy the opportunity to get things done. So, having said that, we are now going to move on to the new business and the Old Town Bowie revitalization.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce the EDC chairman for our city, Mr. Andrew Rowell, who will introduce our speaker.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Andrew Rowell. Good to see everybody tonight. So I've been chair of the EDC for the city for about a year. I've served 1 year of 2-year sentence, John Henry tells me. We've been talking, we have various, every month we talk about a different topic, but one that's come up over the years is Old Town Bowie. And it got me to thinking, I think many of you in front of us, and I know the entire EDC, I think a couple of years ago, just before COVID, we took a bus down to Montgomery County and we gave the entire EDC board or committee a tour of Montgomery County. So we took them to King Farm, Crown Farm, Kentland, that whole thing. But on the way back, we kind of drove through Kensington to get back to the Beltway. And we're kind of pointing out, Kensington has some similarities, right? I mean, it's an older town. Bowie's from, the 1914 train station, your area's there. But what kind of hit us is whatever Kensington did, they did something and they did it very well because it's so activated. You've got to come and see it on a weekend. It's just bustling and it's crazy. So in our village, Councilman Connor Crimmins, I see him every Saturday at the market, and so I went up to Connor and said, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you come and kind of give us some best practices, and how did you guys set the town of Kensington up for the success that it's been enjoying? Because it's very, very well known. And so Connor didn't think it out very well, and he said, sure, I'll do it. And so he made a presentation, which you'll see tonight on March 9th to the EDC. And I've been on the EDC, I don't know, John, for years it seems, but that was probably the most interactive and most, the attention from the members. They were asking tons of questions. It didn't seem to end. I mean, we go from 7:30 to 9, hard stop. I think at 9:30 I had to kind of shut it down, and it was just question after question. So Connor was kind enough, and you guys were kind enough to let him come tonight and kind of give you what they did in Kensington, how they got it to where it is. A bit of background for Councilman Crimmins. He's Mayor Pro Tem of the town of Kensington. He's chair of the Development Review Board, similar to Montgomery or Prince George's County, where we don't have zoning authority either in Kensington, so it's dealt with the county. And Councilman Crimmins has been on the town council since 2017. And talk about repaying favors. Now he's sworn me onto the Development Review Board of town of Kensington, so nothing's for free. Councilman?
Thanks, Andrew. First, man, I want to say thank you for having me. I have to be honest, I don't know the last time I've been on this side of the dais. So this is a little bit different. First, to Mayor Pro Tem, council, staff, thank you for having me. To the EDC, John and Andrew, thank you for inviting me. My name is Connor Crimmins. I'm Mayor Pro Tem, council member from the town of Kensington. And as Andrew pointed out, I chair our Development Review Board, and I'll get into a little bit of how that works. But what I presented at the EDC back in March was a simple question of, Kensington isn't a big metropolis, right? When we all break apart at MML, you guys go into the city category, and we go into the small town. We are just above tiny town. We can actually go to the first slide, and I wanted to show a little bit of how we kind of compare with each other, right? So the city of Bowie, because you are truly a city where we are just a town, you are just about 60,000 residents, right? We're barely 2,000. You have 21,000 households, we have just under 800. You have 20 and a half square miles. We are literally a half a square mile. So when Andrew talks about going to the market, Andrew lives at just about the southern border of our town, and I am 2/3 of the way up to the northern border, and that's 6 blocks, maybe. So it's also why when you go to the farmer's market, you see everybody, right? It's in the center of town. We're going to talk about that. But we are not a big land mass. But we do, as I proverbially say, we hit above our weight category when it comes to how we've been able to activate that space. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that is. Our median incomes aren't terribly different from each other. This is from the most recent 2019 data from Data USA. You all have considerably more home ownership. The median property values are slightly different. I mean, Montgomery County, we unfortunately have very expensive real estate right now. But what I hope people draw from this is that the city of Bowie, you guys being much larger than us, and Kensington, in many ways, our demographics are same when it comes to income and median age and the people who we're trying to service. So we'll move on to the next slide. I would just want to set the place of where Kensington is. I don't expect everybody to know, maybe, or have been, but we are in Montgomery County. We're in what they call Down County. So we are just north of the Beltway, 495, at Connecticut Avenue. If you were to exit at Connecticut and you were to go north 1 mile, you are in the town of Kensington. And if you go north 1.5 miles, you are outside the town of Kensington. So it's very easy to miss us. And our historic district is tucked away off of Connecticut Avenue, and if you're not pointed that direction, if you don't take a bus tour, you might miss it. But the other thing that we are competing with is all of these other regional places that are shopping and entertainment and retail destinations. So Pike and Rose is a multi-hundred millions of dollars new development. That is kind of the shining star right now in lower Montgomery County, and it's only 3.3 miles away. So it's very hard to compete with that. We are just to the west of Wheaton at 1.4 miles, which has a metro station. It's the seat of our county planning. It is undergoing its own redevelopment, so it too draws away from our retail district. We're only 3.8 miles away from downtown Silver Spring. We're just over 5 miles from the district border. And now recently, since March, the Chevy Chase Lake at the bottom is a new retail and residential mixed-use development that is going in between that district line and Kensington to put yet another, I don't want to call it competitor, but another option for our residents just 2 miles away. So the point is to keep our residents and their spending in our town, we have to compete with all these nearby places, much like the city of Bowie. There are options. People will get in their cars, and there are many places they can go. And you have options within your jurisdiction that we don't. We just drove past, the town center. That at least keeps you dollars here in the town. If people don't stay in Kensington, they are obviously leaving Kensington. So what we're trying to accomplish is how do we keep people out of their cars on the weekend, in town, walking to our shops, to our restaurants, to entertainment. So we had some other challenges, though, that we had to face. As we move through the next slide, please. Sorry, I realize I'm doing my own slides here. What I want to talk about is within that half-mile district, we're going to focus on what we call our historic business district. So on Google Maps, you'll see we're talking a grand scale of maybe 5 blocks. It's not big. But as you think about Old Town Bowie in your historic area, I think they're comparable. They're not large areas. So it doesn't take a large amount of space. It doesn't take a number of shops. We're a small train town, just like Bowie. Our old town sits right along that. One of our challenges, I looked at some of the images from you all, is we only have one side of the street in our historic town district. We don't have 2 sides because of how they built it. Retail is on one side and light industrial is on the other side of the track, so we're only dealing with half a streetscape. So it's not a lot of landmass. Next slide, then and now. Here's the big difference. We're going to look over the past 20 years. In 2002, and I don't want to make this the focal point, but there is one clear and obvious thing that we have to acknowledge is there was no alcohol in the town of Kensington. We were a dry town. You could not buy it off sale. You could not buy it on sale. None of our restaurants could sell it. If you went out to eat, you couldn't have a beer. You couldn't have a glass of wine, which obviously meant we didn't have a lot of places that wanted to come and open restaurants and art galleries and events because you could not serve alcohol in the town of Kensington. In order to get that, we had to go and talk to our state legislators, we had to go and talk with our district representatives, and we had to wedge out a liquor license within state law. Let me tell you, that's one, not easy to do, but every time we need to amend it, we have to get a new bill through Annapolis, which is never easy. So it is both wonderful that we've accomplished it, but we've had to go back to that well a couple of times to expand it. And, you know, every time we do, there's always a wonderment of why can't you get it right, right? But this is part of our story of the challenges we had to do. So at that time in 2002, those were your options. If you and your family, you and your loved ones wanted to go out to eat, you had some friends in town, you had takeout pizza, Continental, still family favorite, loved, but no delivery. You had to come and get it, and it's on Connecticut. It's not easy to get to. You had China Gourmet, and you had Manny's Subs, and that was it. Those were your options. 20 years later, we have multiple business license types, on sale, off sale, brewery, special event, tastings. But now what we have is a bevy of options. They are both along Connecticut Avenue, our state highway. They are in our historic town center. New ones are literally opening every month. And in fact, toward the bottom, you'll see Baby Cat Brewery. Kensington is going to have its first brewery opening in September. All because of areas of opportunity that we saw in economic development where we could go and advocate for that style of license and then work with brewers to find one that wanted to open in Kensington. They saw the value of our town and then push for it. And that's going to be kind of our story is, you know, whose job is it to do that, right? So next slide. Here's a little bit of the how. The first is, like you all, we have our budget. There's so much money we as a town can put in. Your budget, I mean, I will tell you our budget is $4 million a year. I'm sure you guys can spend $4 million a year on, you know, a project, a fleet of vehicles. We're a very small town. We don't have a lot of money to be putting into a lot of things, but we leverage state programs very, very well. And there are two that have been very successful. One is the Main Street Maryland program. If you go to MML, you hear all about it. But the idea is to revitalize places that, you know, their heyday was a decade or so ago. The streetscapes, the facades, the buildings need new paint, we just need to be refreshed. The state has money that they are willing to go dollar for dollar with your city. You know, you put in a little bit of skin and they will match it. We've leveraged that. It's been a wonderful program. The other one for us, though, has been program open space. This is where we wanted to create some intentional spaces around town, and we needed money to acquire the rights to that space, either buying it outright or leasing it, long-term leasing and making the improvements. On the screen right there, it may not seem like much. There's a small retail building to the rear. It is a second use kind of building. It's a prevention of blindness, so it's antiques and it's second time around wares. But in front was just asphalt. And we went to program open space. We asked for money. What we wanted to do was get a long-term lease and make an improvement to turn this into an urban park. The idea being it wasn't going to be a grass park. As you can see, it's asphalt and planter beds, because we wanted to turn this into a venue where we now hold our summer concerts. The school groups hold their bake sales. We have our evening programming. Andrew's wife helps chair one of our civic associations, where this past winter, they activated a great space. They brought in a bunch of fire pits, and we had s'mores, and we put Christmas lights everywhere. We're a very social town. In the middle of winter, it's kind of hard to pull people out of their houses, but a little bit of vision and a space to do it, and all of a sudden we have a new event that went amazingly successful and will be back on the calendar for this coming year. Next slide. This kind of goes without saying, I think, for a lot of people here, but for anybody who may be watching at home, the other thing that it takes is building relationships. So here in the city, working among yourself, working with the EDC, working with your building and property owners, but also making your, whether it's District 23, your legislative district and state representatives, going and leveraging them, because they know when state dollars are available. If you need a bill, if you need a grant, you need to be able to play nicely with all of those people. For us, this was our story. First is 2007, we're a dry town. We went to the state legislature. We asked how we could get a liquor license. They carved out that bill. Immediately after 2007, we had 3 new businesses open, 3 new restaurants, because they realized they now had a revenue source that could help them make their rent every month. Since then, from that previous slide, you saw that has blown up exponentially. We have 25 new options that are all within walking distance. But as I mentioned, we have had to go back to the well. We did it in 2019. We went from that initial, let's say it was 5 licenses up to 8 licenses, and then 2020, we made some carve-outs for new styles of license, brewery, event, one-day licenses. And just this past session, because our brewery came in and we had a retirement facility that came in, which I will tell you, people forget that they need liquor licenses too. All of a sudden, we ran out of licenses. And we had one of our long-term businesses come in. They wanted to start a brunch service. They're a coffee and ice cream place. And they ran into a hard ceiling. There were no more licenses. We were fortunate. Our state legislators were savvy to get our bill in late. We understood that, but they made great efforts. We got it passed. We have expanded our license count out now to 20 licenses. Will we fill them all in the next year or two? I don't know that we will, but what we've done is we've incrementally moved that needle. We took a town that was completely dry and residential concerns that, if we were dry today, tomorrow, we're going to have people stumbling all over the neighborhood. We're going to have cans in the parks. And we've done it very incrementally. And we've built the trust of our residents, that they now see the vision that the council had before I joined and since I've joined, that, alcohol has, it's a vice, it has its place, but it is also an economic driver. And for all these small business restaurants, independently owned, which many of ours are, it is the source of income that keeps the lights on and keeps the rent being paid. So, any questions so far? You can certainly ask at any point. The other thing was, Montgomery County had a sector plan that was passed in the 50s, a general plan passed in the 50s, and Kensington had a sector plan passed in the 70s, and it had not been updated since. And if you looked at that plan, it looks nothing like what the town was, and the vision for what it wanted was nothing like what we were looking at today. So the town underwent redoing its local sector plan for zoning and use. We were the first district in Montgomery County to incorporate the mixed-use town center. They built a whole new zoning code because they looked at our crossroads. We have 4 state highways that cross in the heart of Kensington, and they realized we have a real opportunity for increased density. We have an opportunity for mixed use. We have to build our retail corridor. We can also build our residential and office. Obviously, that was 2012. Office has shifted, but it is now set a precedent by which we are now developing against. As Andrew mentioned, I chair the DRB. So the sector plan came in 2012. We didn't really have a mechanism for how to go about reviewing and approving, or we don't have approval, but reviewing and recommending programs to county planning. So we created the Development Review Board, an entire process that goes with that, how we operate, what our powers are, what our powers aren't. And since the creation of that, which I helped to draft, I've been the chair of that. And since then, we've seen multiple redevelopment programs come into the town and be highly successful in bringing housing, affordable housing, and additional retail to meet that growing population. And I already had the last point. Moving on to the next slide. This really gets at the heart of kind of the story. What do you need to do? And for us, it's what we call creating a place, PLACE. Our downtown had a few shops. Its identity was all mostly antiques. And we wanted to create a mixed economic development business district. And so we came up with this idea of building a place. So a place to play. So fitness, recreation, and parks. A place to live. We wanted to bring housing into that historic business district or abutting that historic business district. Arts. We have made a huge stride on public art, services, artisans and galleries, commerce, keeping our shops, our services, our markets, our farmers market, our winter markets, all those things down in the heart of town. And the last one, which took the longest, but is paying some of the greatest dividends, is entertainment. So we have a partnership with 2 local theater groups. They run out of our town hall, which is right in the center of our business district. And we have a very entrepreneurial property and business in our district that teaches music to kids during the day, but he's a former musician. He has activated his parking lot into a live music venue. And we do about 4 to 6 concerts a year. And Bethesda Magazine just recently named it the #1 place for live music in all of Montgomery County. So it's pretty significant. And when you see it, I'll show you the picture and say, it's not much. It's a parking lot. But it's what he did with it, and it's that community aspect of the fact that it is part of our neighborhood identity. So if you turn the page, that top left corner, that is the parking lot. It's several older buildings from the 1970s. I have to be honest, I love the property owners, but they're not much to look at. But he brings in amazing talent. He respects our noise ordinance and time, but he brings out hundreds of people, most of whom walk in, they fill our restaurants, they hit up our shops before, and then by 11 o'clock, it's just quiet. It's clean, the streets are empty. Bottom left-hand corner is Howard Avenue Park. That's the one I showed before. It's the back parking lot to an M&T bank, the prevention of blindness. But we've built a pergola and some benches, and so we do throughout the summer. The Historical Society activates it every Saturday at our farmers market, which is across the street, with live music. So during our farmers market, every Saturday we have live music going. Just another reason to bring people into that space. Once they're there, then they start to hit up our shops. Then they stay for brunch. Then they go in and buy some records or buy some books at the antique bookstore. Here's another one. It's an old former Victorian, which used to be an ice cream shop, which got converted. It's the sweatshop. It's a gym. So people come in the morning, they work out. They've got massage therapy up above, but right next to it is M&T, and right next to that is the park. This is our stretch. So these are different use buildings all in that same area. Moving on to the next slide. Again, you'll see some of these are new events. So the top left and the center top are from our recent Juneteenth Day celebration. I bring these. These aren't in the historic business district, but why it's important is one side supporting the other. When the idea for this celebration came about, our business district stepped up and they sponsored the whole thing. So to make the money work, to make the funding for this programming work, it's our business district that stood up and sponsored almost all of it. Our 8K race, which goes to supporting our local schools. Our annual car day, we worked with Park and Planning, the Parks Department, to bring in I forget the bike track, and they put it up in one of our properties. And there's that same sweatshop being converted over to live music during our annual car festival. So all these are just different ways to use the space that's already there. Next slide. So how we've branded ourselves, we were once only considered to be an antique village. We are now the Antique Row at the Kensington Historic Business District. We, as a town, we sponsor the ExploreKensington.com website. That is our public commerce-driven website where we do all of our social media, our wayfinding, our marketing, mailers, directories. We market every week to our residents and anybody who signs up. What are the events going on? We talk to every one of our businesses, anything they want to push out about specials, about events that they're doing, so that our entire business district is talking to the town every day, and anything they want to put out, we put it out to the thousands of people who have signed up for our e-newsletter. What that has done for us is it has elevated our place within Montgomery County to where now our pizza place, frankly, is voted the #1 pizza place in all of Montgomery County. The events place, #1 place. Our farmers market, which, take it with a grain of salt, it is Bethesda Magazine, but we're the second best farmers market behind Bethesda's farmer market. I feel there's a little hometown favoritism there, but I'm not going to push the issue. New places for wine, all of these things are things that 5 years ago we were none of those things. And in the last 5 years, this being driven by our businesses and by our community and the town bringing our purview of keeping the space nice and clean and activated, along with the energy from the community and our shops stepping up to say, we want to do this. We want to get people onto Howard Avenue. So next slide. When we talk about activating the space, I won't go through all of them, but this is just, this is probably 90% of the events that we run throughout the year on this 5-block stretch, right? Your farmer's market, your Day of the Book Festival, car show. We've got all sorts of programming through the holidays. We light up the town Christmas tree and the town menorah, and we do the new event with s'mores and lighting up the town park, dog parade. Now, because we have this new brewery we're talking about, an Oktoberfest celebration, because we have put a focus on public art and murals and art galleries, there's talk of doing an arts walk. There's talk of an arts and ales festival where our artists, galleries, and our brewery will work together to create a reason to walk from one end all the way to the other and pop in, right? Kind of like passport programs that you see in some places, right? A way to make sure that people are coming off of Howard Avenue and going into the shops and meeting the shop owners and seeing what they have to offer. So The next thing I'll leave you with is recruiting new businesses. So we don't have an economic development council, which would be amazing. It comes down to pretty much our council. Our biggest thing, which is the underlying one, is we talk to everyone. Every meeting I'm at or restaurant I go to is talking to people. Why did they pick their space? Why not Kensington? Would they be interested in Kensington? What could I do to draw them to Kensington? That's how we got a brewery. I made one comment to a friend. He mentioned that he knew somebody who was contract brewing but was looking for a brick and mortar brewery. I said, could you connect us? We sat down and had a beer. We shared a vision for what I wanted to see and what he wanted to see, and I asked him to write down the 3 places in town he think would be the best location for a brewery. Our number ones matched. Within 4 months, he had it under contract. So they're building out and they'll be open in September. It doesn't always work that way, but it'll never work that way if you don't talk to everybody. Don't be secretive about your plans, right? The last one, and this is our experience, right? Be approachable and accommodating, but don't be politically selfish, right? I get it. If I can attract this brewery to town, it's good for me, right? Because I'm going to have to be reelected at some point. But that's not the way we work in Kensington. And Andrew will tell you that when I had an idea, I went to every other council member. What am I missing? What are my blind spots? What are people going to say? What is your side of the neighborhood saying? To make sure that, if we all think it's a good idea for the town, chances are it's a good idea for the town. And if I'm missing something, it's a safe space. Tell me what I'm missing, right? Because at the end of the day, for us, it's how to improve the town of Kensington for everybody. It's not about me. It's not about elections. I just want this to be a great place to live, right? It's my community. And so the biggest thing in the takeaway there is you just got to be approachable and talk to everybody. Everybody's got something to offer. You just don't know if it's today or next week or a year from now. I'm talking to restaurant owners now who are under lease for 4 or 5 years. That's great. But guess what? The buildings that are going through the DRB now that have to go through permitting and have to be built, they're not coming online for 4 to 5 years. So now is the exact right time to start talking. So I'll leave you with the last slide is just an open invitation to come and visit us. We would love to have you, and if you're coming, please let us know. I send the regards of Mayor Tracy Furman, and she asked me to extend the invitation to say if you're coming, let her know. We will love to walk you down the town. There's nothing we love more than on a Saturday. Walk you down, introduce you to our shop owners, take you to the market, show you the stretch. I mean, as you saw on the map, it's 10 minutes of walking. It's not big, but there's a lot packed into that 5 blocks. But here are some of the events that are coming up, and if we would love to have any and all of you come and visit. That's it, gentlemen and lady. Any questions that I can field for any of y'all?
I think I'd like to just open before we ask questions and just say thank you. That was a great presentation and really appreciate you bringing that forward and sharing that with us. Any questions from Councilman? Go ahead.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Save for the comment about the review board, development review board, I didn't hear a lot of discussion about collaboration with your county organizations.
I talk to county planning probably every week.
Yeah.
So, and we do it very closely and very intentionally because, we have a shared vision. Their general plan is pushing a little bit further out than Kensington's ready for, but we'll meet them there. But we talk with State Highway, Montgomery County DOT, the utilities, but those 2 first agencies, and then Park and Planning, the planning board staff, we meet with regularly. We talk to them about big and little, everything from stormwater some days to, we're going to have a major redevelopment of another parcel in our town coming up soon, and we will talk to them probably every week, right? Just about every little iteration. So, similar to you all you have a similar park and planning structure in Prince George's County. We have found that at least in our District 3, the staff there is unbelievable. They're unbelievably giving of their time and their knowledge, but they really do, they're out looking at places across the country annually, and they come back with ideas that, architecture, layout, right now, town centers are kind of a big development item, but we don't have a lot of the land to do some of those larger ones. So they're showing us concepts that they're like, we really think that this works, and helping us shape what we see as a vision, so that when we go and talk with applicants, we can help to work with the applicant to shape the project from how, the town would like to see it, how it best serves our community.
Question for you on the building structures themselves. What percentage is existing heritage buildings, not necessarily suggesting that they're all exquisite buildings, but how much of it is existing versus new construction in your area?
So in the historic business district, much of that is in the historic envelope. There are a few buildings that, while not individually recognized as historic, they're within the district, so we have an overlay. There's a whole historic district. So everything in there, even though some of the buildings are built in the 70s, they still fall within the district and they come under the purview of historic preservation as well. As you get out to Connecticut Avenue, which is our town center, you have still 90% of the buildings are older than 1980. And we are just now beginning to see the redevelopment that was envisioned in the adoption of our sector plan. That town center, but also the shift, I'm sure you all know, office used to be what you wanted. Man, you could get people down here from 9 to 5 and they pay great rents and they do long-term leases, and now office is dead. So we have a lot of buildings that have really weird occupancies. But even our Class B buildings, well, we have a lot of independent businesses, right? A law firm of 1 or 2 practicing attorneys, a dentist of 1 or 2 chairs, smaller things at smaller rents. They still service our community quite well, but we have some of those aging building stock that are ready for redevelopment. And because we updated our sector plan, they at least have a roadmap to the heights, the densities, the FAR that we think is appropriate for our town center.
You mentioned light industry on the other half of the street. What's happening with that? Is that staying light industry, or is that going to evolve?
Part of that, great question. I live on that north half, and part of the light industry, starting from the eastern edge of our town and moving, one is, it was a former concrete plant that no longer is a concrete plant and just stayed as you would imagine a former concrete plant might look. And we went to them and said, this is in a light industrial area. It's not abutting any residential. It's right next to the train tracks. You're not going to reactivate it. Could we get a lease and turn it into a dog park? And if I could tell you, the only thing more popular than the dog park is the farmer's market, and they are adjacent to each other across the tracks. So we found a way to reactivate that space so it's not dark at night, but it turned out to be another community building area, because if anybody who has a dog knows, you get to know everybody and their dog in town. As you move west, you have a parking lot for Mark, because we're a commuter station. Then you have one small retail shopping center, which has been very popular because we've turned it over into more boutiques. We do have an animal hospital in there that's very successful. But then the next parcel used to be a former lumber yard. And that is the one that got redeveloped recently into a $75 million dependent living facility, with 2 historic structures that they paid to repurpose and to revitalize for us. They incorporated one and made it a salon for the residents. And as a public amenity, they took the former, it was a former gas station, and they've now converted it, they're in the process, to a public cafe, a coffee shop, that will open at the end of July. So these 2 buildings that honestly were starting to get on the fringe of dereliction were saved as a part of their redevelopment envelope, as well as, we're adding hundreds of residents, and very little service demand because they privately contract for garbage, and they've redone our streetscape and new sidewalks and the undergrounded power lines, and then as you move 2 light industrial warehouses next, highly successful. We've had a huge flower shop run out of one, contract. What am I looking for? Restaurants in the others, like offsite kitchen prep. We have a black belt martial arts studio, which is where 2 of my kids have gone, usually popular. And then we have another small retail, a portion of which is about to be redeveloped as well, into 6 new bay retail center, a bank on one end, and 5 restaurants on the other end.
And you're clearly you're seeing, as you mentioned, you travel down to the several blocks all the way downtown to hit your farmer's market and run into Mr. Rad. How many people are coming from beyond the friendly confines of your actual, city boundaries?
Great question.
Yeah.
In the heart, right at the western edge of our historic business district, but with their ingress right off of Connecticut Avenue, is kind of our golden ticket, Safeway. That is the grocery store for all of the surrounding little communities. So there's a couple municipalities that run south on Connecticut Avenue, and then the other civic association communities around us. The next shopping center, there's a Giant up in Wheaton, that's another 1.5 miles to the east, or Whole Foods off of Route 355, Wisconsin, Rockville Pike. But again, you're another 2.5 miles to the west. So we have everybody's groceries. So all of those neighborhoods, we are their commercial business district. There is not, Wheaton is the next closest commercial business district. So for all of those communities around us, we are where they come to get their dry clean, go see their eye doctor, go see their regular doctor, get their teeth cleaned, go grocery shopping. All of that is done in the town of Kensington.
Right. When was the last time you annexed anything into the community?
3 years ago.
3 years ago?
All residential.
Oh,
We annexed 37 homes and two business, a gas station and another small retail up on our northern edge. We have a very odd, on the northern boundary of our town at that time, Perry Street, or Perry Avenue, is the southern end of the street was in the town, but the north was out of the town. So do we plow half the street? Do we plow the whole street? But it also meant 2 sets of garbage trucks. Ours, because we independently contract, and then the county's. We do pick up twice a week, county does it once a week, but that meant 3 days of garbage going through there. So the residents in that area, it's what we call the shark fin, came to the town and said, we would really like to be inside of the town of Kensington. The northern border of that section is University Avenue, another state highway. It all is contiguous. It's all single-family homes in the sense that you walk from one side of Perry to the other side of Perry, you don't realize you've left the town. So we had them go through our process. They gained the signatures of, you only need more than 25%. We asked them to get greater than 51% of households and property owners as well as residents, because there's some rentals, overwhelmingly came in, and we annexed them in 3 years ago.
So you've not, as a general rule, you're not a annexing kind of group?
No, and this is no slam on like Gaithersburg that grew up through annexing, but we're not opposed. But it's got to be something where we're not out looking to annex areas. If those areas, the businesses and the people within them were interested in being part of the incorporated township and they brought it to us, then we would weigh whether to annex it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. Greatly appreciate it. Very informative, and I will certainly take you up on your offer at some point.
Please come see us.
Come in and make a little tour, make a nice visit. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Any other questions? Yes. Go ahead, Councilman.
Sorry. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I know that you got enough on your plate in your town without having to deal with our business as well. So it means a lot to me, and I appreciate Mr. Rowd taking the time as well to do this. So Old Bowie is a passion project of mine, and I'm really, really grateful for this. There's a lot in here that I would love to see replicated. I've been working on Old Bowie stuff for a while now, so I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit.
Yes, let's do it.
So I texted Mr. Rowd these pictures as well, but I took a screenshot of the kind of 1,000-foot unit on Google Maps of Old Bowie and of Kensington.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the two, it's very striking. Kensington, it's tons of homes. It's Connecticut Avenue, as you described, 193, 97, Rockville Pike.
Mm-hmm.
You got Wheaton nearby. I mean, it's a very dense picture of stuff. You look at Old Bowie, you got 197. And you got the residential portion of 564, and you've got maybe a third of the people, and nothing really super walkable. So, and you don't have any major stores, you don't have major draws. You know, you've got Bowie State just out of frame, but you basically have a lot of separate communities that are a bit of a drive from one another. You got a lot of forest. You've got, Jericho Park. You got the National Nature Preserve. So there's just less people, and there's less stuff. And the biggest challenge I've seen in Old Bowie is that when we talk to investors, when we talk to people who want to come here, never mind the fact that DPI is a living, walking dumpster fire. compared to the permitting in Montgomery County. And I have a neighbor who screams at me.
It's a technical term. Yeah.
No, Andrew was nodding. I saw other people nodding. I saw our planning staff nodding. I have a neighbor who works for DPI and gets mad at me whenever I say that, and I tell him every time, if you had a better agency, you'd hear me complaining a lot less about it in public. But once you get past the fact that our bureaucracy is a hellscape to deal with, right? In fact, I talked to two friends of ours at Bowie Town Center who said the only reason they haven't opened up a second location in Prince George's County yet is because they don't want to go through permitting again.
Correct.
I don't hear that in Montgomery County.
Well,
In Montgomery County, I
spend a
hear
little more time in Montgomery.
in Montgomery County, I hear, you know, it's tough, but it's consistent, it's a little bit easier to work with, it's predictable. So beyond that,
Sure.
you also just have the fact that there's just fewer people, right? There's fewer customers, and there's less stuff there to draw people in. And it's very hard to get businesses to want to be that, you know, that pathfinder, you know, in Old Bowie. You've got the Old Town Grill, which is doing great. You got Green Chili's, you know, which is doing a lot of kind of catering business. They're not the kind of place that people, you know, are walking to, you know, the locals and so on. You've got a new pastor in a United Methodist Church there who's very excited and wants to leverage the parking she's got, you know, to support anything we're trying to do. The city's pumping money. We've redone the Old Bowie Heritage Festival. We're going to be combining that with the International Festival this year, which is a really good move. So we're starting to pick up the pieces and start to move forward on the components. The city's built a nice new park there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's the bones of something, but the customer base is really lacking. And trying to overcome that is, I think, going to be our biggest challenge, never mind all the DPI issues. So, have you been to Old Bowie? Have you walked through there?
I've been through it, but
Okay.
not, I mean, I know
Yeah.
about as much there as you may know about Kensington.
Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough. So what I would love to do is I'm going to join Dufour and anyone else on our trip to Kensington, and we're gonna talk about this in more detail. But I would be very curious to talk to either you or a member of your planning staff or just someone to kind of see, you know, what they think, you know, about Old Bowie and some of the challenges that are just going to be a little bit more unique that may force us to think about certain things a little bit differently.
So I feel the makings of a reciprocal trip. We would love to host you in Kensington and have you walk, and we will talk, and I'd be happy to reach out to our planning staff and have them join. And in return, love to come out and do the same kind of walking tour in Bowie with you all, where we can, you know, it's a compare and contrast. And are there lessons that can be leveraged and shared? And invite, you know, to the extent I can't ask them, but I can't make them, but, you know, if granted, our planning staff they love to talk about this stuff. They love to talk about, you know, the setting of a place. So, but I will say, one pushback, we speak the same about our DPS and our inter-county bureaucracy, but I have heard that you have a special level that might be slightly beyond Montgomery County. So, nope. So, we all, you know, once you get to that stage, you'll get through it. It's just, it never goes as fast as you want. So, but let's do that. Let's arrange a reciprocal walking tour.
You're here to a reciprocal trip, and when you're in Bowie, lunch will be on Mayor Adams. So.
Oh, thank you, sir. Sounds terrific. Other questions?
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. All right. Councilman?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, no, go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to say Councilmember Esteve and Wolfley went through quite a bit of my questions. Very good questions. You were right on point. I loved it. I want to say that with Councilmember Esteve, outside of him, I want to say, you know, I've been on the council for, 12, 14, somewhere around. I don't remember. I kind of lost track. But we've always wanted to do a lot of things of what you've done here in Kensington and Old Bowie. And it's, you know, just incredible what you've done. First, I want to say everything that you have, I would just even like a fraction of it in Old Bowie. There are a number of residents, as Councilmember Stev mentioned, that want to see more entertainment, want to see more amenities, things of that that are accommodating to our neighbors there in Old Bowie, to bringing perhaps a local or smaller grocery store. You know, we've looked at a number of different things, but what you have here is a blueprint to where we could perhaps begin, you know, conversations and actual real working and making some real change there in Old Bowie. You guys were very successful in what you've done there at Kensington. It's incredible. I'm going to join them. Mike, I'm going to join you guys when you go to Kensington. When you choose, I'll be there. It's just miraculous what you guys have done there in Kensington. And first, above all, paramount to everything, I want to thank you for coming out from Kensington and sharing your success, what you guys have done there with Bowie. It definitely shows that you're concerned about the region and your neighbors here in Bowie, and we're very happy that you've taken your time and come and spent your time with us, because you could be doing any number of things right now. So we're grateful that you did that and then came out and shared that with us. I also wanted to say to Mr. Andrew Rowd, he's almost like an 8th council member. This guy here is on our EDC, he's on the chamber, he's on our local hospital board. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. I know you're with St. John Properties, a firm that does business with the city, but you have definitely shown your personal and concern for Bowie. You're totally invested. I'm grateful to that. It speaks volumes that you have bigger interest in just one thing. So I'm sure someday soon we'll be seeing that you'll be buying or purchasing a home in Bowie. So we welcome that. But Councilmember, definitely Crimmins, we are so very, I'm going to speak for myself, and I hear from Councilmember Esteve and Wolfley that they seem incredibly impressed in what you guys have done there. Again, if we could just get 25% of what you've done in Old Bowie would be a major change for that community of Bowie. So I'm on board to whatever staff, whatever my colleagues, and whatever we need to do to get some of these things happening. I do agree with Councilmember Stev when he mentioned as far as our the density isn't there. Maybe we have to build it and they'll come. Maybe we have, as we spoke, we do have some entertainment, but maybe we should increase that. Maybe we should look at year-round events. Holiday, I like how you guys, you brought together the community for your holiday parties and things of that nature. I love it all. I love it all. I can't speak. It definitely shows community. It shows community and just the bond and the love of just community, and I want to encourage that. I know we have a farmer's market and a number of things there in Old Bowie, but nothing has seemed to really pick up and gain traction. And so I'm going to give it all of my energy as I have, but in the past, but Councilmember, I'm there to support you both because I know that District 1 is this has been your baby, your project forever. And I want to continue to help you on that. So let's get started. Let's get started. Thank you again, Councilmember Crimmins. Thank you so very much. And as well as you, Mr. Rowell. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman.
Again, thank you. Echo all the comments. I just have one quick question. Yeah. You hit a point that I just wrote a note on. With your median property value, $712,500, what does affordable housing look like in Kensington?
No, that's a great question. So the residential that has been built in the last 5 or 6 years, the county, similar to, you all might have an affordable aspect, we don't. The county sets all of that. Okay. So they started the MPDU, the moderately priced dwelling unit program, which any new project being built over, I think it's 19 units of total houses, or 19 units of housing required. At first it was 12.5% had to be set aside for moderately priced dwelling units, which is generally defined as 80% AMI or lower. They have since pushed that to 15%, which has been great. For us, we realize the importance. We have one of the oldest populations in the state, and Montgomery County is it's an aging county. And we realize that with fixed incomes and other things, there's a lacking of affordable housing. We just recently had a development complete. It is open. It is 93 units. but it is 100% affordable. Sliding scale, they have about 15, 20% at 80% AMI. They've got about 60% AMI, and then they have another 15 they've reserved for deeply affordable, 30% of AMI. So that is, $41,000 a year.
And no, that's great. Do you see more, so is that mostly for seniors, or what's the demographic?
This building happened to be age restricted. It worked with how they were getting some of their financing. They had some state bonds and other things, and there are other experts to ask about that question, but what I came to understand was, for the style and financing, that age restriction on buildings 52 and above helped open up other funding sources. So that building happens to be age restricted. But we have a couple of other projects that are in the early stages, and I would say kind of pre-concept plan. That will be multiple hundreds of units that will look at, the floor being 15% of those have to be held aside for moderately priced dwelling units.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure. But yeah, the county needs it. We have an opportunity to provide some of it. We're not, the silver bullet to all of the counties because we're small, but we also realize our town, we have we would like to have options available when people feel that they no longer want to be in the home that they're in now and they want to remain in the community. We need those options.
Absolutely.
We have an aging, just rental property stock. A lot of them are two-story or apartments over our retail. They're aging, but they're not. We don't have a huge number. We have one larger tower, several hundred units, but we are constantly looking and encouraging mixed-use development that brings in just more people, and with that, more people brings more affordable as well.
Good. Absolutely. Thank you. Councilman.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
You too, sir.
Rarely get to say that. I'll be brief here because I know we're heading a little late. But again, I want to echo the comments by my colleagues and thank you for coming from Montgomery County all the way to gorgeous Prince George's for this. Two things, and we can talk a little bit more offline about this. I'm really interested in learning more about the recruitment aspect and how you partnered with the county if you did or did not, and B, again, from a municipal budget standpoint, if you guys put any dollars into actually recruiting folks, into Kensington. So I'm curious about that, and you can talk about that.
Yeah, we don't have a line item on business development or economic development. It's right now just a passion as chair of the DRB, and then I've asked the mayor, may I take on that responsibility of starting that? When we start to see fruits of that labor, we can talk about.
Yeah.
So if you want to call it my salary, which is part-time stipend. The other aspect I will tell you that I've had great success with, I don't know if this is a hidden gem and if I'm giving away a secret, your local banks. That has been one of the greatest resources to businesses that are looking to relocate, because all of these restaurants, they're all tied up with their banks, right? Their daily transactions are going in, they're talking to their banks all the time. We have an M&T branch in the town. One of the vice presidents happens to live just outside of the incorporated limits, but he lives in Kensington, and he shops in our places, kids go to our schools. And he's constantly like, I have this great restaurant, it's in a different part of the county that, man, they would love to be in Kensington. What do what's coming around? Who can I contact them with? So between talking to the business owners, and the actual property owners, knowing what's coming up on their leasing schedules, and then talking that's where we've made a number of these connections. Is a restaurant that's just their rent's going to go up somewhere else in the county, and 5 years ago Kensington may not have been on their radar, but now we are, and they still feel like they're getting in before the top of the wave.
Yeah. And my next point is really for Mr. Raud here. I know myself and Councilmember Stev took a trip out to Montgomery County, and we visited Pike and Rose and a couple other places. And I've been thinking about this ever since we visited there, but there's a neighborhood that you showed us that essentially developers kind of redeveloped for seniors, right? And they were dilapidated, I guess, at some point. You kind of redeveloped them. Do you remember that exact neighborhood and what that was really about?
What you were saying where they knocked down the Rambler and put in the bigger home?
Oh, that's, yeah. No, I think, did you take them? No, sorry. I make them come up to the microphone.
Yeah, because I did get a little confused, because there was a dilapidated building that was turned into the $70 million senior center. That was what you saw, and that was like 4 or 5 stories, I think, right?
Right.
I think what you're referring to maybe is on the other side of Connecticut, where you saw those 1960s Ramblers, and they knock it all down except one wall and then put up a beautiful big house.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in the car, actually. I kind of think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Councilman Crimmins, you might want to explain your ideas. I kind of thought it as a litmus test or a canary in the coal mine to show reinvestment in the community. That's the way I see it. Now, whether they're too big for the lot, that's a whole other thing. But somebody's putting a marker down saying, you know, I'm going to buy this 60s sort of Rambler that's not, I mean, I don't think the market wants that anymore, and saying I'm going to knock it down, put a ton of money into it, and I'm going to live there and have a beautiful house, whatever.
Yeah.
I personally think that's a factor.
And I will add, I don't know the right answer on this, because we are talking about the same thing in 2 different ways when we talk to the county about their vision for affordable housing is, well, we need to put more money into naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA, right? So these Ramblers, these bungalows, and we need to find ways to preserve them, which is great, but the market, I mean, if government money to save them versus a cash offer, the cash offer is winning every single time. Now, what Andrew's talking about is just outside of a border. We have a little bit, we have some parts in our the north part of town that have some of those post-war Ramblers and Capes that are starting to now see redevelopment. They're either being expanded or ostensibly torn down and rebuilt. And the other option, the other way that we have to begin thinking about it today and tomorrow, today is, to Andrew's point, that is, that changes our tax base, right? It does add additional tax revenue without adding a ton of services. But the other challenge and opportunity, depending on how you want to look at it, is the county's next general plan that they're going under, Thrive 2050, is looking at removing all red line restrictions from our residential zone, where you might be able to do duplexes, triplexes, or fourplex by right within the residential zone. And so, I grew up in a city where duplexes happened all over the place. You didn't know. I didn't, I found out about it because I had a paper route. And was like, why am I delivering 2 papers to the same house? And it was either side by side or an up and down. And I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Those were common everywhere. And I think that if it's within the footprint of how we do lot setbacks and restrictions, I don't think people would have a problem. But where we get is we also have a very old town. Where you're 1916, we are 1894. And a lot of our roads were built not for the automobile. And so some of our roads, to give you an idea, are 21 feet wide, and people try to street park them. And some of them, they try to street park both sides of them. And the problem is we know that we're going to run into an infrastructural problem, whether it's stormwater, on-street parking, fire and safety, taking something that was one home, one unit of housing and turning it into 3 and 4. And in some cases, you could build a fourplex and an auxiliary dwelling unit behind. It's going to be a challenge. Okay. Now, that's to help meet the county's housing needs, but we, as a town without zoning authority, have to, we have to educate, and we have to bring our community around to understanding that. But there's no good answer. It's, if somebody wants to buy a home for, market rate is 500 and build something that's now 1.6, and I got to tell you, these things last 6 days or less on the market. I don't know how we preserve naturally occurring affordable housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the time.
Coming in. Thank you. And we look forward to having you. Thank you. Only 2 seconds to wrap up, because we've been way long on this.
Just to wrap up, the way I see it, and Councilman Steph made a good point, if there's one thing I'm sort of relentless in, this would have nothing to do with St. John Properties. This isn't what we do, but I would love to dig in with you guys and I think there's a way to figure out Old Town Bowie. I wouldn't write it off. I think we can get there and figure that thing out. Because one of the great things that this does is you should see the sense of community, and that's why you really got to come out, because it's a twofer, right? You're revitalizing that area, you're getting some tax base, but The only way to get this, the sort of the community going is to get the community going. And like you said, the concert slide doesn't do that any justice. It's inside a courtyard. So when you're walking down the main street, you can't see it. There's a little teeny courtyard, and then it opens up this giant, where he has the concerts. But everybody kind of knows each other. It builds community. I'll help you guys. It's not what my company does, but I'd love to. I think we can figure it out. I would not discount it. I think we can get there somehow.
Hey, thank you so very
All right,
much.
thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ralph.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you.
All right, we will now move on to item B under new business. Vacation,
Mr. Mayor, City Council, in my capacity as city manager, I received a notification of a request to vacate a portion of the public right-of-way. That is vacation position V21009, Woodmore Highlands, partial N. And there is a representative, I believe Mr. Cooper, who is the representative of the homeowners, who would make a pitch to you all regarding the vacation of this property. Or whomever, your appointed person.
hey, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff. My name is Darrell Brown. I live in Woodmore Highlands at 3500 Denmark Place. Come to speak to you today about the situation concerning PT1, which is a trail or biker hiker trail, I believe, kind of changes and over time. I've been dealing with this issue since 2005. So thank you for letting me come again, because I petitioned on this issue in 2005. PT1 was connected with the facility transportation trail that was supposed to come through, I believe, being part of the Inter-County Connector. Sometime around 02, 04, that was abandoned. As that was abandoned, we petitioned the council, PG County Council, concerning this. I wrote to, at that time, Councilman Peters. Todd Turner also assisted at the time, as being a constituent of the community. Talked about this since the facility, since the transportation facility was no longer, it was going to be abandoned. Felt that PT1 was no longer prudent, logical, or cost effective. Presented this to PG County. They agreed. In February 2006, they vacated PT1 from the Bowie, Colleton, Mitchellville vicinity master plan. At that point, I thought this was a moot issue. However, wasn't. Currently, City Manager Deutsch at the time, former City Manager Deutsch at the time, brought this back to the City Council, opposed the County Council on this issue, and even though they didn't agree with the county, kept this on the Bowie's Trails plan. So this was in January 07. During that time, there was several correspondence from National Park and Planning saying that they agreed and maybe, they should keep this on there with Bowie. However, there's no funds available. There was another letter in September 19th, former Mayor Frank Robbins said, we'd like to keep this on the trail plan, but there are no funds available. October 1, Mr. Joseph Maynard, also in his planning, said, we'd like to keep this corridor on the trail. However, project is further under review. No current funds available. October 23rd, 07, National Capital Planning said, we'd like to think we can keep this on there. However, no funds available. May 22nd, 2022, Mr. Lott happened to give us about 45 minutes of his time to explain this situation again, as he was not that familiar with it. We explained it to him. And it's still that at this point, there are no funds available for this particular trail that's been on the plan, vacated by the county 16 years ago. I was 42. I am now 58. Wow. And we can't get past this issue. Don't understand it logically, rationally, but I'm not a political person. I'm just a common sense person. So I'm hoping this evening I'm able to shed some light on this for you all to understand it. You certainly can come out and walk it if you wish, but it's about 100 foot wide. It runs about a city block in between 5 houses. All we would like to do is assume the property, divide it equally. It then becomes our tax revenue, which helps the state of Maryland. Seems like that may help you all too, a trickle-down effect. But at least somebody's paying for it, because right now, I just found that out, no one owns the property. County don't own it. Bowie don't own it. Dedicated for public use. I don't know what that means. So if that means if I go stand in the middle of it, you can't remove me for trespassing, sound like to me, because don't nobody own it. So I hope you all would agree with me, allow us to pay our taxes on this land and clean it up, because there are some issues there. Dead trees, metal, tires. So we would just like to assume it, clean it up, and make it a part of our property and clean it up. That's what we would like to do. That's what we've been trying to do for 16 years. I just think that's the only reasonable request. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Denise Mealy. We live at 3504 Denmark Place, which is next to Darrell, in between this property that we speak of. My husband and I have maintained this property for the 22 years that we've been there. We've had to cut the grass, we've had to remove the trees that fall and try to keep it up to date and keep it the way the community. I also was the board president for Whitmore Highlands for probably 4 years, on the board itself for over 8 years. So that was our main objective, is we always wanted our neighborhood to look nice and pleasant, and we have done everything that we could. My husband has spent probably over $20,000 maintaining this property. And it's ridiculous that we continue to go over this and everybody wants to pretend like, it isn't an issue. It's not an issue to the city. It's not an issue to Bowie as it stands right now, because until supposedly someone puts something on it, the city doesn't have to maintain it and the county doesn't have to maintain it. We have to maintain it. So I'm just asking again, as they spoke earlier, I'm just asking for all the political parties involved not to be selfish about this matter and help us out. We've been working on it. You can come out. It's a beautiful area. We've maintained it. It's beautiful. So we've done everything that we could, and that's all we're asking for, is to finally be able to put this to rest and do what it should have been done a long time ago with this property. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'll be really quick, because I have actually come out to the property. So thank you, Mr. Brown and Mr. Cooper, for inviting me. You guys have maintained it really well. And thanks again, Mr. Brown, for your opening comments here. I'm going to take a shot in the dark here, city staff, and just ask a quick question. Is there any funding coming up for this project?
Well, I can discuss that. No, there's no funding related to this project. And you know what, and since I do propose the budgets, I have no intention to propose any funding for that particular project.
Thank you so much, Mr. City Manager. Look, I think.
How much do they need? What's the cost?
Of what?
I mean, what does funding look like?
Yes, what does funding look like?
Well, what the question is whether we're planning to put funding in the budget to make it a trail and make it a natural area, to make it something. And the answer is no. But these good people have taken it upon themselves, since the property abuts theirs, to maintain it, and they do it well. But we control the easement and the, and as opposed, and so therefore, since it's in our corporate limits, you all have the authority to vacate that and direct us to, you know, disperse the property amongst the property owners, if you so inclined. And what the first gentleman indicated, that they thought they had gotten to that 15 years ago, but then it was added back to the trails plan and voted on by the council. And so it remained a public entity controlled by the city of Bowie. So, I mean, you all have a policy regarding this sort of thing and these sort of properties, but you also have the authority to overrule that, and if you are inclined to award that property, vacate the public aspect of it, and then we would look into how we would disperse it if you were so inclined to do so.
Well, I'll say one last thing I think fair is fair, right? We're talking 16 years or even more. You've been engaging in this matter for 16 years, but even more. And again, I have had the chance, and I encourage any of my colleagues, if they haven't had the chance, to go down to Woodmore Highlands and take a look at the property. But I'm inclined, in my own this is my own personal opinion, not just as the mayor pro tem, but as your District 3 resident, as your District 3 council person, that we vacate the property. I mean, I think there is no future plan to do anything with this trail in specific, and so I am in favor of vacating.
Excuse me, Mayor. Excuse me, Mayor. This item is a public hearing, and we do have someone signed up.
Because they did a presentation, I think we're looking at as questions to them, or
We still have the public hearing for it.
We'll still have the public hearing. We can open the public hearing now.
Okay.
So I declare the public hearing open. Patty McCoffey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Council members and City Council, and thank you. So, I'm here speaking today as a resident of Bowie regarding the vacation petition for Woodmore Highlands Parcel N. Despite the frustration I've heard in the length of your journey, I still feel it is important to retain public right-of-way for connectivity of the future of trails. The city has tried long and hard for many years for appropriate funding and priorities for trails, for these very important public spaces, for recreation, for health, for safety, for well-being. Workarounds are often possible, and in this case, I must admit, we looked, and yes, there are workarounds to preserve these connectivities. But often these workarounds are difficult to implement and usually more costly than the original plan was intended. The city is doing its best to preserve these trail options for better connectivity, and this was one of the goals of the recently adopted Trails Master Plan. And yes, I admit there is no funding. I've waited a lifetime for some of these things, as you have waited a lifetime for your request as well. The wheels turn awfully, awfully slowly. So while there may not be a near-term plan or funding for specific projects, the potential needs to be preserved as much as possible. These potentials are what make Bowie a better place to live, both present and future. Any loss of public right-of-way should be judged based on objective criteria that must be met. So our question is, what criteria is the council using to make these decisions? And does this request meet that criteria? Because without specific criteria, it's hard to argue for or to understand what you have to lobby or request. You can't understand the process, so things go on for years and years and years with no decision because we don't have a criteria by which to judge these requests against. So our question is this: would it be possible to reconsider a reclassification of the parcel rather than vacation of it as transportation to ensure that it's part of the future plan for public recreation space and that it be maintained by the city? So thank you for this opportunity to participate. And thank you for letting me hear your side of the story.
I have a question. At this point, we can close the public hearing.
We can close it.
At this time. We'll close the public hearing, and you have to sign. We can ask you a question regarding this, but the public hearing is just following the process of how it goes. Council members, any questions for?
I do.
Any people?
A couple of quick questions. For staff, starting off with staff. Is it unambiguous that the city owns the property?
No one owns it.
Councilmember Wolfley, this is Joe Miner. I'm the planning director. The property is not owned by the city. It's not owned by the county. The owner is likely the original subdivider of Woodmore Highlands, which is probably no longer in business.
That's ridiculous.
And what we have is a parcel that was created through the subdivision of Woodmore Highlands that was entirely encumbered with a public use designation. So the parcel was offered for public use, for transportation purposes. So that's what it says on the record plat. So at this point, you could not find an owner of the property, but it's not the city, it's not the county.
So in a situation, there's a turn to this attorney here. In a situation where finding the original owner of the property, does it not fall into the hands of the state?
I would say I would have to do a little research on this particular piece of property. We handled a similar situation in another jurisdiction, and we ended up having to actually track down a surviving owner of the company in order to convey the property. So I would need to take a look at the recordation plat and go through some of the background in order to answer the question completely.
So for just my simple summary of it is, we don't own the property, the county doesn't own the property, the owner is unidentified and may or may not exist, but I'm in no position to give to anybody a piece of property that I don't own, correct? All right. Now the next question is the public use of this land. It's been designated as public use, you say on this, on the plat. There are a number of public entities that could use this, correct? It could be for use by us or the county or the state. Who gets to decide that I want to put a rail trail conversion type thing, access point, versus say the county who wants to do something that's I don't know, pick your subject, a tree farm, I don't know, whatever. Who gets to choose on that in such a circumstance?
Councilmember Wolfley, since the property was dedicated for public use and specifically for future transportation facility purposes, it would be up to the county planning board to agree with reversing that dedication to public use. And so this application will go before the county planning board, and if no agency expresses an interest in it, it's likely that the planning board would approve the elimination of that public designation. So you have utility companies who may have an interest, you have road agencies, county public works, the city would be one, park and planning would be one. So if any of those agencies would, during the vacation hearing process, present a case that that right-of-way or that designation should continue, it's likely that the planning board would not approve the request.
Mm-hmm. So if someone wanted to say, hey, I want to put an electric power line down that route, would that be considered a use? It's not a transportation purpose, right? So it really has to be a transit type use, is that correct?
Yes, as I understand it, that was the original purpose for it, but the typical process when there is a vacation petition is it's typically involving a right-of-way, like a roadway right-of-way, and the county does refer the request out to all of the agencies that I mentioned, including the utilities.
So in this circumstance, we have as one of our objectives to expand our rails and our trails network, our hiker, biker paths and so forth, and to build a broader network of pathways, correct?
Yes, it's actually the current city council policy and the development review guidelines to support the preservation of this alignment for a future public trail that would connect from Church Road over into the community.
Okay. And would it be just Church Road, but it also would go over, memory serves me, and I'm trying to remember how it connects to the current Pope Creek rail area. How does it connect to that?
Yes, as there's a drawing up there on the screen, and it shows this subject area that we're talking about, the immediate neighborhood of the petitioners in the green circle. Church Road is to the left side of the drawing, but you can see that alignment, the transportation alignment, follows an east-west direction, comes through the green circled area, and then down to the CSX railroad tracks, and then continues on to the city's dog park and Northview Drive.
So if we were to allow this particular section of of that pathway to be vacated, then that entire corridor becomes blocked, right? Because there's no through path for that. There's no throughway at that point. There's no value in the rest of the right of way if I can't continue through, correct?
Well, that's yes and no. There are indirect ways that you could get around. The other alignment that the council has have policy on is concerning the A44 right-of-way, which is that swath of land that goes north and south, just to the middle of the section there. That is currently in public ownership. So in a roundabout way, you could avoid that segment, but you certainly would. It would be less direct, and you would not be preserving the possibility for a more direct connection.
All right. So, yeah, and so the main concern on the property owner side is the condition of the property and maintaining it, correct? Something that's so that it doesn't infringe on the quality of your backyards and that kind of stuff. Right.
We've been dealing with this for years.
Yeah.
Since I've been there, four trees fall in my yard out of that property.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody from Bowie, nobody from the county is coming down to reimburse me for taking care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently nobody owned the property, don't know. A44, you still probably could use that some kind of way as a trail dealing with that. However, this property, if you go 2 city blocks through the woods, you hit the railroad tracks. So where's your infrastructure and money if you got to deal with the railroad tracks? Because you would have to then go across that to try to get to the other side of Northview where the school. That to me, that seems awfully dangerous and would take a lot of infrastructure. to try to construct that?
Well, the current expectation is that those rails will be, the use of those rails will be discontinued. The expectation is, we know we have one power plant that's, at least one, I think there were 3 power plants down there, one of which has been shut down, and I think another is being closed, and the expectation is that there will be no longer a need for the coal, which is the only current utilization for that rail line, is to deliver coal down to those power plants. So the expectation is that we'd like to convert, and obviously it's bigger than Bowie, because it would take us all the way down to, that rail line goes all the way down to the Potomac.
Correct.
So the expectation is that at some point we can get that at the statewide level and the county and so forth to convert that to a trail program, so that we actually have some, trail that goes all the way from Old Town Bowie down to the river, that would incorporate, obviously a lot of different communities along the way and provides for that. So I wouldn't expect that we'd be looking to build something to go over the rail lines. I'd expect that whatever trail gets put in would be something that connects to that trail that gets built there, or converted over from the rails.
So understand that expectation, but that's a great expectation. And that's a long time away to meet.
Agreed, but without...
That's like the expectation I've been waiting for 16 years dealing with this, a basic trail. Now we're talking about dealing with train tracks. That's a whole different infrastructure
Okay,
issue.
thank you very much.
So,
you have another question?
Yeah, just a quick comment, staff. So, is there a way which we could actually the city could actually take control of that right away? Because obviously right now we do not have control over it, such that we could be in a position where we could put a claim in for use of that space as open space or as a trail, as a future trail, and take that property and help to manage some of the issues that the residents in both this neighborhood and perhaps elsewhere along the route may have some issues.
Yes, to answer your question, Councilman, the city could pass a resolution accepting the offer of dedication, and then the city would be responsible for that piece of property.
Mm-hmm. And it would be the entirety of that section, which section could we do that for?
We're talking about parcel N on the record plat, and that is about 1.85 acres.
Okay, thank you.
So if we were to...
You still have more questions, Councilman?
Yeah. So if we were to do that, what about the rest of that right of way? Because it continues on over both to the east and to the west. So what you're talking about is the area that we'd be taking would be just within that circle area, or would be beyond that?
Well, as I understood your question, I thought you were talking about the immediate parcel that's adjacent to the petitioner's property.
Right.
Yeah.
It's completely up to the council, because the remainder of that alignment all the way out to Church Road is in the same status. The owner is unknown. It is offered for public dedication for transportation purposes, and if the city council wanted to pass a resolution accepting the entire alignment in the city, you could do that.
Okay. And then at that point, we have the asset under our control. We have the ability to manage the resource, so it's not an infringement on the neighbors, and we preserve the opportunity for trail usage as we move forward. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Is that it, Council? Thank you. Councilwoman Harrison.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. Joe, you mentioned in your comments that through the process, if a owner or a company or an organization has an interest in the property, that they could, I don't know, could they purchase the property, or How does that work? I just wanted to kind of get that process that you talked about.
The fact
Clear.
that there is a public dedication as a result of the plat being approved allows for any public agency to come in and improve that property with some facility, and then they would maintain the facility after it's been constructed.
So after 16 years, has there been any interest in this property?
Other than the city council having a policy stating that it should be preserved for trail purposes in the future in conjunction with the 844 right-of-way, every year the council sends a budget letter to Park and Planning asking them to partner with us on that. But there hasn't been any planning study or any feasibility study at this point. That is what we have been requesting their assistance with.
And what is the cost for that?
We have not costed that out at this point.
Oh, okay. And do we know how often the public uses the trail that the residents are requesting vacating?
I don't believe anyone uses the trail. It's really not set up for that purpose now.
Okay. Thank you. Just asking. Appreciate the answers.
Any of the council member, any questions? Mr. Mayor. Your turn. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank the residents and my neighbors of Whitmore Highlands for coming out today. And there's something wrong with this. All of this is wrong. It's wrong. And I always want to be respectful of calling everyone by their last name, but I didn't get your last name, Daryl or Denise. But of course, I know Jeffrey Cooper, Millie Hall, and some of the other residents. Good evening to you. I just had a vision just moments ago that right now, if she were alive, I know she would be standing here, Gail Booker Jones. She would be very upset about this. This is something law going wrong. I'm sorry to hear that you were taking care of this property for 16 years. And I do mean this respectfully to my colleagues here on the council. I do mean this. You are impacted negatively by this. You are impacted by this financially. You are, not us, not anyone else but you. And I do understand, ma'am, your concerns of the trails, the walking trails, but it hasn't been done. It hasn't happened. And 16 years, and I'm sure this was planned prior to 16 years. I'm very supportive of Councilmember Boifo, Mayor Pro Tem's Boifo's wanting to vacate this. Nothing has happened in 16 years. Nothing is likely to happen. There's been no funding set aside to address this, ever. There is no money now. So I don't see money coming anywhere in the future to address this. This property we need to vacate our position. I know when Darrell came up earlier, he mentioned then County Council Member Peters, Doug Peters, who later became our senator. Todd Turner was his constituent services director, who later became Bowie council member, who later became the county council. This was their decision. They knew of this. I'm in agreement with those gentlemen. They're fine. They're fine gentlemen. They seem to be on the right side of our neighbors and residents here in Bowie. So I'm wanting to. I could say a whole lot, and I think you know where I could go with this, but I'm not going to go there today because it just seems that this was completely unfair. Completely. So I like to try and work to correct that issue and removing and vacating our position on this property. And I support Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem's motion to vacate. And I like to see us do that. A recommendation. I'm sorry, recommendation to vacate. I like to support that as well, okay? And I'm regretful. I don't know why I'd never heard of this before. I'm just hearing of this now. 16 years, I've been on the council for 14. Someone should have brought this to me because this is a problem. This is a problem. But thank you very much for bringing it to us now. Hopefully we can find some means of resolving this. Thank you.
Councilmember.
Yes, so I have some technical questions because I'm a little confused about the process here. So, Mr. Minor, from what you described earlier, it sounds like this comes down to the County Planning Advisory Board. Did I understand that correctly?
The county planning board, yes.
Okay, so they're the final decision maker in all this.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, if the county planning board agrees to vacate, that's the technical term for this, then what happens?
Well, then it would be up to the property owners to conduct some sort of deed partition and file a claim, so to speak, for the land. If this was a roadway right-of-way, there's a pretty standard procedure where you would vacate to the center line of that right-of-way, and then the owners on either side could then add that land to their deed, because technically when the right-of-way was created, it was created over their land anyway. So and all the rights were given up at the time of the subdivision. In this case, it's different because it's a separate parcel of property. It's not a right-of-way. And the separate parcel of property is encumbered 100% by this restriction. So if the planning board agrees to eliminate the restriction, then the property is sitting there and the adjacent owners can conduct some sort of legal attempt to claim or partition that land and add it to their land. So it's a private matter at that point.
So just so we're clear, if the City of Bowie Council tonight says we're going to vacate, it still goes to the Department of Planning at the county. If they agree vacate, it's then up to the residents to hunt down the descendant of a non-existent property owner to then negotiate with that ghost to take control of this property. So the only thing that changes is this simply loses its value as a potential future trail. You're going to have to privately hunt down a property owner and hope that they are willing to negotiate with you. And then all you're going to gain is property that then you will be responsible for. So I just want to be clear about what we're looking at here, because it's not obvious to me what the benefit is in that situation. To the residents, it's not clear at all what the benefit is. I get not liking maintaining it now. You're just going to be maintaining it more when you own it, and you're going to be paying a slightly higher property tax bill. So again, I'm not totally clear I understand what the benefits are on your end. I'm not totally clear I get it. It doesn't sound like anything's actually going to change.
The benefit of owning the property is, the benefit of this has been, we've lived in this community and been residents of Bowie, my husband and I, and most of Woodmore Highlands we've been there for 22 years. The majority of other homeowners have probably been there 30 years. It's probably one of the best communities within this area right now. So for us, it's the ownership of something that we've been taking care of that long. And like we said, we will still have to maintain it. And if the trees and anything happens, we still have to maintain that property. So it should be ours at this particular point, since we've been doing it all along for free. Therefore, it shouldn't be an issue. If we're okay with it, it should be okay with you guys.
So I guess here's my question, and I agree, Woodmore Highlands is an awesome community, and I totally understand wanting it to be pristine, and I get it. You guys have an awesome neighborhood. It's a very, very, very cool place. You guys do a great job. I guess my question is just making sure we're clear on what the process is, because if we agree to vacate this and the county planning board then agrees to vacate.
The county has already agreed to vacate. It came back to the city because when I sent all the letters out for all the utility companies and the council, everybody okayed it, everybody signed off on it, and then I got a letter from Mr. Merritt.
Okay.
And that's why we're here tonight.
Gotcha. So if we agree to vacate, you're still going to have to hunt down this.
No, that's not the process. We're already in the process. The only problem is, like I said, we had already done all the legwork. We have already paid Dewberry to do the land surveys. We've done everything. It all of a sudden came back to Mr. Merritt saying, no, we can't do that. And so now we're here. So we've already done everything. We've contacted all utilities. We've contacted the county. We have all the letters. I mean, we have everything from Dewberry that we need. All we need to do is then after this, if we are allowed to finally take over this property, is to submit the application to the county. We've already paid $4,800 for this property, and we'll have to pay another, I believe, $1,200 to complete this project. So it's a $6,000 project that we, the community, the residents that are sitting here tonight, have done. On top of everything else we've done.
No, I hear you, that's a lot, and I get
Yes.
that. But can I ask, who are you taking the property owner from? Like who are you taking?
Well, the county, when we initially contacted the county said they didn't want it, and we could just divide it up between the homeowners. That's what they told us, because they don't have no use for that property. The county vacated.
But the county doesn't own it.
The county,
So-
well, the county had some ownership, I guess, initially in the property itself, but they gave up their rights to the property, and they said, if you guys want it, fine. So we did everything. We took all the necessary steps to get to this point. As I said, everyone has signed off on this property. The
Okay.
only
Thank
issue is the city of Bowie.
Okay.
And then you have no funds available.
Thank you so very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Councilmember, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I think we might want to listen to our city attorney for a second.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like there are several issues that may be relevant to your determination that we can't answer tonight from a legal standpoint, as to, for example, that parcel N designation and the ownership and what park and planning may or may not have done. If it would be helpful to resolve those things prior to your action, we can certainly look into that and report back to you within a week or so.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Council members, anything else? Council member?
And how long would it take you to?
Hold on, did
I'm
you
sorry.
have another question? I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Michael, you done?
I'm done. I just want to make sure that we don't put the city or the residents in a situation where they're investing more money into a property that they don't legally control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that would not be a first time that this occurs in the history of deeds.
So how long would it take for staff to come back and get us some, a review from the legal standpoint?
I would hope within a week or so, but I'm going to say it's that time of year when a lot of people are on vacation that you're trying to get answers from. So if everybody is available at the county level or park and planning that can answer the questions, I think that we could respond fairly quickly.
I think that sounds like a prudent approach to resolving. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at this point where we are is that I think the residents have made a point that they've gone through the process, that the county has already agreed that of how they should move forward, and they've done that, and they've hired attorneys to do that already. So I think we're past that point of where we simply need to now determine what our position is on whether or not we choose to vacate that. So at this point,
Mr.
we
Mayor.
close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
And
I'm sorry. You're saying that all the due diligence has been done, but none by our staff.
no, I'm saying that our staff came back and said we're in a position to be able to make a determination tonight.
No.
I didn't hear any of our staff saying we can't vote on this tonight. Did someone say that and I missed that? No, we haven't. All right, move.
Mr. Mayor, I'd
You
like to
can- you
make-
can-
Sorry, he's not finished.
No, my point being is, there's a difference between making a decision versus making the decision with all the relevant facts in the background from our legislative team and our legal counsel to make sure that we've got all the pertinent information, because I don't think we do.
Okay, I appreciate your point of, and I will now open the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Entertain a motion.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to vacate parcel N, also formerly known as PT1, the transportation right-of-way, and vacate it from its public dedication.
I'd like to second that.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? I think we've had a lot. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to.
Hold on, Mayor, I need clarification. Councilmember Steph, was your an aye or?
I'm going to abstain because I'm very nervous the residents are walking into a situation that's going to get more complicated.
Okay, and I apologize. I thought you had voted. Okay. All right, so, from that vote, what?
So we have Mayor Pro Tem Boffo, Councilmember Gardner, and Councilmember Harrison, and Mayor Adams for ayes. I'm sorry, Councilmember Wolfley as a nay, and then Councilmember Steph as abstaining.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to item C, the introduction and adoption of the emergency ordinance. City staff.
Mr. Mayor, as you can see from the memorandum, we have presented an emergency ordinance, which is, what this does is this accounts for the adjustments we had to make during fiscal year 22 as we managed the budget. For example, the Youth Services Bureau received an additional $30,000 from Prince George's County. $50,000 was the previously awarded. Results total award was $80,000, and additional funds will be used for professional services, $19,300 for material supplies and minor equipment. That's the operation. In human resources, for example, we transferred $27,000 to cover the unexpected expenses associated with recruiting qualified persons in this very competitive environment. Understanding that one of the things that exists this year, opposed to last year, was it was very hard to get people, period. And so we had to advertise and do things we had not normally done. There were situations where people would agree to an interview and not show up. It was really tough. So this document that was presented by, drafted jointly by the city attorney and the finance director, demonstrates how we made adjustments in the management of our operations, and we moved money from one line item to another to accomplish the goals and objectives that were in the budget, from the issue of HR back all the way back to page the last page, which shows the water and sewer fund, improvement of buildings, disposal fees, repair and maintenance, and all those line items as we went about our daily duties this year. This is something we do at the end of every fiscal year as we adjust from what we've done to accomplish our mission. Happy to answer any questions, or if somebody's got a question of the finance director, he's out there in virtual land, but we're hoping for a motion and an acceptance of this emergency ordinance so we can include this in our packet so as we get ready for our audit.
No, Mayor, there's no comments for this evening.
I will now call the public hearing closed at this time as well. And it's eligible for action. If there are no questions, I will open the floor to a motion.
I move the adoption of ordinance 02-22.
I'd like to second that.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By the way, I think Northridge is the best neighborhood in town, just for everybody's edification. Nothing, I mean, just my neighborhood. Anyway.
Second only to Longridge.
Thank you.
All right, well,
I love them all.
All right.
we have
will
our
now move
final
on
issue
to-
for the night, which is the public art update, sir.
We will now move on to item D, the public art update.
Lori?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. I'm Lori Cunningham. I'm the Community Outreach Specialist for the Department of Community Services, and I also serve as the staff liaison to the Arts Committee. It is our pleasure to be here still this evening to present to you the Public Arts Social Justice Mural recommendation by the Arts Committee. The Arts Committee is charged with ensuring that the city is able to have its grants and initiatives and scholarship programs available to the residents, and it is also responsible for making the public art recommendations to the members of City Council. And so before me, we also have our chair, Kathleen Parker, who will also assist with this presentation. On April the 12th, the Department of Community Services released an RFP for the public to be able to bid on the Public Art Social Justice Mural. That bid process closed on the 17th of May, and we received 2 submissions. And those 2 submissions are also included in your packet. The public art final submissions were received from Desiree Kelly as well as Levi Robinson. And those are the 2 final murals. And at this point, I will turn it over to our chair, Kathleen Parker.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, or is it good morning, gentlemen and council members and mayor and city staff. In the process of our public art program, we did have a community engagement piece, which was a survey which lasted from May 23rd to May 28th, and we also held a community meeting on June 9th. The community had the option of attending in person or virtually to hear the artists present their visions for the project. The community survey highlights the survey where there were 277 people responded to the survey, 96% of which lived or worked in Bowie, and the majority were in the 45 to 65 age range. Some of the comments, there were a few comments from the community feedback about some particular items in the pieces. They wanted incorporation of youth in the pieces to make sure that it promotes diversity. There was an request to add more color to keep the art inclusive. And as the art committee, we would like to see more diversity murals on the gymnasium wall where this is going to be put or placed. The arts committee recommendation, after reviewing the submissions of both artists, Desiree Kelly and Levi Robinson, and considering the feedback from the community, the arts committee recommends Desiree Kelly to the city council as the artist for this public art project. Desiree Kelly's portfolio is attached in your packet, and we have some highlights of it. She spent many years, about 11 years in experience with this type of a mural, and has worked with many corporate organizations, and you can see a variety of some of her portfolio for other murals that she has done around the Detroit area and Michigan area. So these are some of the other images that she has created. So the committee would like to suggest, this image that's up is the image that Ms. Kelly has presented as her final image for the Public Art Social Justice Mural. And the Arts Committee would like to recommend your approval of this image to be painted on the gym wall outside facing Northview Drive. And Ms. Kelly is with us on the call tonight virtually, so if you have any comments, she is here for any comments that you have regarding this public art mural. Thank you.
Okay, what I'd like to do is first thank you and the Arts Committee for taking the time and the effort and meeting with others, and thank you for your recommendation. I'd like to ask if there are any questions from the council that they may have for the artists.
Yeah, just,
You mind?
just
Oh,
a,
go ahead.
just a quick comment, I think it looks great. I think the concept of doing murals and otherwise blank, boring facades, I think is great. There may even, and this will be kind of something for kind of an extra, I'm thinking something maybe in the Old Town Bowie area, there may be some opportunities there for some murals that are consistent with that geographic location, you know, maybe some train themed or something or the other. But I think it'd be good to incorporate some of that thinking into the committee's future plans. But I think this is a nice approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your good work on it.
Thank you. We do want to incorporate more public art murals around the city as our public art program continues.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councilmember Steph.
Just wanted to never miss an opportunity to publicly thank Ms. Kathleen Parker for your great work on the Arts Committee. You did quite a lot with the Old Bowie Celebrates Festival last year. I don't.
Oh, hello. Hello, I didn't know she was there.
Yeah.
I am here. I've watched the whole meeting, and I appreciate your comments. And you know, if you do approve this mural, I surely look forward to creating it and creating this beautiful piece for the community.
Hey, thank you so very much for being a part of putting yourself out there, your artwork, but also for staying with us because it's been a slightly extended meeting this evening. So having said that, any other questions anyone has? Thank you again so very, very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I will make this eligible for action and open for floor for motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the recommendation of the Arts Committee for the mural from Ms. Desiree Kelly.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Did you get a chance to vote? I didn't see, okay. So on that note, unanimous and the motion carries. Hey, I'd like to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you very
Again,
much,
to the
Council.
Arts Council, again, thank you for everything. Thank you to staff, for all of you. Thank you to those who have been through the meeting itself at this time. I'd like to say thank you again for being with us, and please stay safe, and officially open the floor for motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.